I'm Melissa Matthews, and I'm here today with Alison Filihia of Let Love Bloom, and she's from the Central Coast. We're both from the Sydney and Central Coast areas, and we are wanting to talk to you about people being on their spiritual path. So if you're on your spiritual path, if you're looking to develop your intuition, and you're looking for some people to connect with that are on their path already in various ways, with fun, humour and practicality. We're keeping it light and we're keeping it real. And so we're going to be very, very honest with you, because that's something that Alison and I, we do really, really well.
That's right.
So, Alison, tell us about you. How did you start on your journey?
Well, I think the journey has just been, it's just been such a long journey for me. And it really started back when I was about, 17 years ago.
Don't say about the age.
And well, it was around 31 years of age. And I kind of have learnt over the last few years, especially, how much early 30s is such an important age for the soul and our awareness, and how much our intuition can really start to take flight around our early 30s. So I've heard that from other people, but I know early on as a child, I was a lot more intuitive than I realized, or what I realized was any different to anybody else. I was very sensitive. I was the kid who was always feeling and sensing if everyone was happy or not. I was the sister, if my older brother got into trouble, which we never got into trouble. My parents, I was the kid, I was the sister sitting outside his door crying while he was, in his room. I, was always drawn to wondering why people were either homeless if we drove through the streets of Sydney, always drawn to wanting to help fix and rescue people. And that did take me down a path of many relationships, having relationships with people who ended up needing a lot of helping, fixing and rescuing. And especially in my early 30s, when I realized that my relationship with my husband was in a really, really, really bad place, and I ended up having to go to my first Al-Anon meeting, which is a support group for people for loved ones whose loved ones have a drinking problem. And the first thing that they kind of say to you there, it's like a 12-step program like AA, is you have to hand your problems over to a higher power. You've got to let go and let God. And I was like, are you kidding?
I do this myself. I don't outsource.
And it's like, how on earth do I hand over this massive problem, this weight of my whole family? I had 2 little girls at the time, daughters, to something I didn't even believe in or see.
Yeah.
But I realized that I was in the right place. I needed to be coming to this program every week because I didn't know anyone else dealing with this kind of thing. And it was this insanity world that I was living in. If any of you have ever dealt with someone with a drinking problem or an addiction problem, it's a really cunning, baffling disease. But so little bit by little bit, as I started to hand over little things to the universe, couldn't say God was very difficult for me. It still is. I've only just started saying it all these years later. But little things started to happen. And it was just crazy to me that I could actually do less, and things that I'd never even dreamed of could start to change and work out. It was just amazing. So I guess that's mine.
One of the big things that came out of that, though, is that you went on a path of kinesiology, and you actually started to heal yourself and release a lot of, I suppose, I'm not sure what you call it, what type of energy that you would call it, but you started, to really work on your chronic fatigue.
Well, that's it. During my 30s, the stress of living with what I was living with really started to impact my health and well-being. And for 6 years, I was really, really sick, and no doctor could tell me what was wrong with me. So again, around, 5 or 6 years later, I was led to kinesiology and emotional freedom technique, which I'd never heard of before, and it changed my life. And yeah, so.
Well, I know I've had a session with you quite a while ago because, as you know, I'm perfect, so I don't need much work. Oh, God. But
you heal yourself. Just,
that's right.
you know.
I heal myself. but it does make a difference, and I don't know why. And I'm one of the biggest skeptics out there. And even though I've got particular skills and things like that, I'm still really surprised at what comes through in a session. And the same as you would be, because like when you see a client, I don't know what's going to happen. I just know that I do my prep before so that my energy field is clear, and so that I'm not thinking about what I want to tell them, because I'm handing it over for a higher power to bring that information through, because it's not about me. And then at the end, then I have my discipline and clear my fields, etc. After that. But it's a very unusual thing, isn't it? It's like handing it over to a higher power. It's something that I knew about as a child, and I suppose a lot of people like you knew something when you were a child too. But then life gets in the way, and it's just like, oh my God, and I'm like digging myself into another hole. It's like crawling out.
And we're conditioned.
Another one. It's like,
yeah. We're conditioned to always know what to do. We go to school, and if we don't know the answers to things, we get into trouble, or if we don't get perfect grades, we're just so programmed to know everything, but we don't know everything.
I do.
That's because you've got some very switched on guides that and your higher self.
No.
So tell me about your journey then.
Well, that's the reason that I have a lot of that humor, is because I was always really serious. Like, I could see things, as a very, very young child and a very young toddler. And I still remember things from when I was even, so I wouldn't even have been 16 months old, and I can still remember things quite vividly from that. And it was in like a knowing. And even when I go back to these particular times, I remember quite clearly even then, like thinking. So it's not even that I knew how to speak or articulate, but there's just a knowing, and that comes within. And so I never felt alone during my childhood, and I was shown a lot of things, but I was more the observer. So, when we have, say, like the angels and guides and the higher self, and that's how I now know them, like I would know, and I would just watch people, but it was as the observer, and I was shown like not only what I was looking at, but also I could see within about, half a second to 2 seconds, their complete life. And what that does is, when it shows you that, because this was just being shown to me and I didn't understand why, it shows you the complete person and the whole person and how beautiful they are. And that we are to look at people as we look at ourselves, as whole and complete in every single moment, because it is all part of a whole story. We are not like, that's why I laugh and say that, yes, I'm perfect, just because I've got everything. But if I focused on this one thing here that I did, well, it would be several things here that I did that wasn't true and correct, or in the best possible way, or the best version of myself, then that is going to overshadow everything that is actually good about me, and the focus of that. And as I know it, and maybe you do too, the higher self, God, the universe, collective consciousness, etc., we are seen as pure. We are, and that's how, and that's what that understanding of ourselves is about. Not in a cocky ego way, but as a human, what I call humanness. Whereas we see it as, well, you know what, I didn't do the right thing. What have I learned from it, and I'm going to go on. So I would see things like that, and then I suppose I always used my intuition, and I always knew, but sometimes it wasn't consistent if I got really stressed.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting. But I think it was about a few years ago when the father of my girls died quite suddenly, and he came to me, and I knew that it was him, but I couldn't believe it, because even though I did have that ability, and had sometimes to see dead people, as they call it, I wasn't trusting of it. And I thought, well, I'll go and see a psychiatrist, but I'll see a clairvoyant first. And I didn't know that there were specialties like mediums then. And so I went to see a clairvoyant and then a medium, and it was confirmed, and I felt much better. And so then I started that communicating, and I went and did, and I decided that I did want to go and do that. So as a profession, so I went and did a clairvoyant healing course, amongst others. And that was what really started it. And within the year, I was full time. And that was how I met you, was through, you know, the beautiful festivals.
Yeah.
And that was it. We were off. So it has been difficult, though. I've seen myself, like I was very new to the industry, and I didn't understand how things were done. So, you know, so I've had some challenges there, but, you know, I'm basically a self-sufficient person. And that's how I like it to be a lot of the time as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of on the job training. Like, that's the way it has been for me as well. It's basically, we're just on the job training all the time from.
Yeah, we are.
Myself and guides.
Yeah, and it's that tuning in and understanding and knowing when you're tuning in, or if you've actually picked up the wrong radio signal, because that can happen. So you've got to like bring it back.
Especially if you're not grounded or clear or centered.
Yeah, or if you're upset. And that's why decision making, you know, I don't make decisions on the spot. I will do what you call now, I've gone over to the inspired action type of thing, you know, I like that word. And I like that, whereas but I've got to make those decisions when I'm quite calm. And that's also if I'm upset, if I'm overtired, if I haven't been eating properly, if I haven't had enough sleep, and this is regular sleep as well, these are the things which make me feel a little off kilter. And I prefer to work when I feel really good and I feel really good about myself. And to me, that's a stronger connection. And
so how much has that become a much more of a priority to you then, you know, doing this work?
Much more. And it's got to be joyful. If it's not joyful, if I'm doing it because I feel like I have to work or I have to bring in an income, you know what? It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. But if I'm like quite happy and joyful and engaged and connected with people, that works really well. But I do take my downtime. That to me is really important. And I take my family time and I schedule it so that I'm not overworked. I have a lot of quiet time. I like my own company.
So can I ask you then, if for the other people who are listening to this and hearing that, they might be thinking, oh, well, you know, like I don't necessarily have that luxury all the time. I've got a full-time job. How do I still develop my intuitive gifts when I've got a lot of responsibilities or, you know, work and stuff like that? How could you maybe advise them to still, work on their intuitive gifts?
So there are a couple of things that I do, and I find them very, very easily. And I would say that the majority of people that come to see me, because I also trained in mindfulness as well, and so I can help people with that. So I just do breathing. I sit quietly without any stimulation around me. And sometimes we might need to put headphones in for that and tune into, say, an app like Calm, which is a great meditation app and it's free. And just listening to that, so you're cancelling out the noise and the eyes are closed so that you're not visually seeing anything. And it is actually just breathing, and even you can feel that breath in your body as your ribcage expands and deflates. So that I would recommend that for 10 minutes. Just do the best that you can.
Definitely, because it's like a muscle. Intuition, tapping in, we've all got it. It's just a muscle that hasn't been exercised.
Yep. And so that, you know, doing that type of meditation, what that does is it calms the physiological system within the body down, which then calms the mind down. So it does take a little bit to get used to, but you'll find that it's really beneficial for everything. So for me, that once or twice a day, if you're in great distress, you know, if you've heard some news or you feel quite upset about something, then of course, you know, doing that the best that you can works really well. 10 minutes before you go home, pull over in the car and do that then. Before you go into it, you'll arrive home calm. The calmer that you are, the better your life flows. And so that helps with the intuition as well. It helps you to be aware, and because you're not picking up all of the rubbish. You're calmer, you're centered, you're being quite focused with your thoughts and your focus, and so you know what the rubbish is, and that is also intuition. With regards to tuning into the guides, that also then starts to develop as well. It starts to develop quite naturally. But one of the things that I love and do is I also journal. And I journal when I'm calm, and this is a simple one.
Yep.
And I normally, I go with what I'm guided to in my sessions. And so normally people leave with a journal, as well. And we show them quite simply how to do that, which is basically once you're calm, and then you can start asking questions. And it is as simple as that. It is about tuning into your inner guidance, and then you have a record. So it can be your inner guidance. You can be, narrating in your head, asking questions in your head and writing those down. It doesn't matter. The point is that when you're in that calm state, you are actually, you're linked in with, what would you call it, like source, organic source, the God. You're linked in with everything. You're calm. That's it. That's your intuition. That's a better decision making.
Absolutely. So it's being learning how to be less reactive. And I know for me, I used to live in such a fight and flight state all the time. My little nervous system was always on fight and flight. And that is just a very difficult place to tune into your higher self, because again, for me personally, I had to heal my heart and clear out my suppressed hurt and emotions, everything from my heart, so I could get out of my head and my brain, to stop the overthinking, to be able to drop back down into my heart and my feeling, which is where our inner guidance system and our spirit and everything, is connected through our heart too. We've got to be able to balance that head and heart so we can quiet that mind. If so many people find it hard, I've realized, to quiet the mind, because then their feelings or their emotional body gets activated, and that's not comfortable. So I've had to do a lot of healing, and that's why emotional freedom technique and tapping and kinesiology has allowed me to be the open channel that I am today, because of healing my heart. And that's what I would also recommend to people who are suppressing or holding on to still pain from the past, or things from their past that they're still not at peace with. Because as soon as you get out of your head, it's all gonna...
Well, that's it, getting out of your head. And so let's talk quickly about some other ways to get that out. So, because some people won't know, or won't even have access to go to, say, kinesiologist, or for the emotional freedom technique, or even to have a reading. And again, something that they can do quite quickly to help them settle, but also to help them to express this, is actually, again, writing it down. Writing it down, because it's coming out of the body. That energy is then, it's being there. If you feel, and I do have clients where I say to them, if you feel that you're writing words that you don't want anyone else to see, rip those pages out and destroy them. But the important thing is that it must come out, and you can do that in a private way. You can go and speak to somebody, a counselor, psychologist, but it is important, no matter how we do it, that we have ways that we know that we can do it either ourselves, because some people are very private and some people will go and get help. I myself know that I do go and talk to people within a setting that's very, very private, because that's it. That's my 1 hour to talk about this particular situation, and I get guidance from that, and then I leave, and that's it. And I feel much, much better.
Well, I know, just tapping my heart, just putting my hands on my heart, helps me, my awareness, brings my awareness down to my heart, and then writing or just tapping my heart gets the blocked chi. Your heart sometimes is so frozen over with walls and protective layers and everything, and I know mine was. And so I know one of the first times in one of the meditations I did years ago, when I first felt the angels, that pure unconditional love of the angel vibration just flowing down and blending over me. It was the most intense, magical feeling that I've heard people talk about, but I know the first time I experienced it, I just cried.
It takes your breath away.
It's just that I've never felt, even though I have beautiful mum and dad, I've never felt that pure unconditional love. Just that pure unconditional love. And all your little pain spots, but it's like, oh, but what about this? And but what about this I've done? It doesn't matter. They don't care. No. They just love you and they want you to be happy. Yeah. And so listening to a guided meditation, or I just lie on the lounge and just ask for the white light to flow down over me. And even if you just practice that, it's just amazing getting into that receptive mode. That's the biggest thing I tell my clients. We're so busy doing and giving, we're not used to receiving and getting in that receptive mode. And it's amazing what can start to show up.
So I see, I'm glad that you brought that up. So that technique that you talk about, like the white light, I see that as coming down. So it's really quite wide. So maybe about, 10 feet either side of me, because that's going to take in all of my fields and things like that. And so it comes down like right from the heavens. I don't even know like how far away it is, but that's where I see it. It comes from the beautiful source, and it comes right down around and through me. So it goes like down in through all the cells and into, back even to the DNA and everything like that.
Absolutely.
And it goes down and it goes right down through into the center of the earth and then up again. And so those two energies, they just go through and they're just like clearing and cleaning, but it's lifting it up. And it's really beautiful. Like sometimes I'm in a state where, because I'm quite hyper focused and like, it's like an ADD thing. So, and I just need help. And so I ask my team, my angels and guides, to help me to do that. And I just let them do that. And that actually makes it even more powerful. And that just comes down and I stay with that. So I can be doing the breathing, but it's there, and it's just making it so that it is what I need at that time, because they know what I need as well.
Absolutely. They know. And for someone who feels like they have to control everything all the time, or I come from, the background that I come from where I literally had to control everything.
Yeah.
To know that I don't have to control anything, that they are sending me whatever I need, and even to show up in my life, to just start showing up. It was the biggest mind-blowing, amazing thing that I just, can't just tell you how much it's been able to change my life, to know that something higher than me knows better than me what to do, and I can just,
I know.
that it's going to be all right. I became so beautiful. Like, I don't know, when you first started feeling this, I just wanted to meditate all the time. And I've heard some of my clients and other people, all they want to do is sit in the white light. They don't even want to go to work anymore. They don't want to do the housework. They just want to meditate. It's just so cleansing and healing and uplifting. And it makes you realize what a dense reality we live in sometimes, being a human, with all this low vibrational stuff going on all the time around us. And that's where disease can really set in, when you're living at that real dense, low energy field all the time.
Yeah. So I mean, they're great techniques that anybody can do. And with the white light, you know what? If your eyes are closed, I want to be clear about this, because some people don't see. Like they don't see, and that's okay. And well,
I'm a big feeler first. I just felt first everything.
Yeah. And so that's another great point to say is that, like now, even when before we started, I sat in here and I did my clearing work, and then I opened my eyes, and I can see like the white light here, and I thought, oh, my glasses are dirty. No, they're not. It's almost like a film type thing, and you might see it as white light, or you might just feel it feels different.
Yep.
But the point is that it's an energy, and it's an intelligent energy, and it knows what to do. So for me, the less direction is better. It works much, much better for me. So
yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. So now we've been on this for a while, so we're gonna wrap it up now.
Okay.
So is there anything that you want to say, Alison?
No, I just want to reiterate, it's been, I'm just really looking forward to having more chats with you and to talking about some really great topics to help people on their journey, because we're all on the journey. And I never would have realized in a million years that I would be doing this work seriously. I never in a million years thought that I would be doing what I'm doing, and even doing mediumship work. I just wanted to mention one other just amazing aha moment. Even after I healed my chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, and I studied kinesiology and I opened my own practice, not long after that, my father passed away. And 6 months after that, some girlfriends said to me, oh, do you want to come to this little workshop to connect into spirit guides? And I was like, yeah, cool. Because I loved all that stuff. I hadn't really been doing anything like that. I was just doing my kinesiology. And 2 days after I went to that place, I was sitting in my backyard having my morning cup of tea, and I felt this energy come over me. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to practice what I did at the workshop. I wonder which guide it is coming to me. So I just centered myself, tuned in. Who is this? Blend with me. And then I heard the name Tony. And I'm like, who's Tony? Oh my God, is that you, Dad? And then he appeared to me and started talking to me and was just as excited to talk to me. Was absolutely blown away. And because I would never lie about these things. Yes, I've always wanted to be able to have these experiences, but it was so full on. And then very quickly after that, all my kinesiology clients started to show up, people I didn't even know, and very quickly would say they're not over the death of this person or the death of that person. And I would be like, oh my goodness, their loved ones are in the room, and I don't, I'm not trained in this stuff. So I started to just gently ask them if they're okay, if I was to bring a message through or connect to them. And every single time it was spot on. So I just want you to realize that many times we don't realize we're being trained to do this work. That
it's true.
As soon as you start to tell spirit, your higher self, that you want to do this stuff, you want to be of service, that you want to be a pure channel, then amazing things can start to turn up.
And it really helps if you actually turn up and do that work as well, and use, and be aware that you don't want it all the time.
Yes.
You want to be really clear that otherwise they will come to you and they'll wake you up, because they know that you can hear and see it and know that they're there. So you make it really clear that this is the time that I do this. Is that what you do?
Oh yes, I've had to learn so much over the years, and how to, even before I go to work that day, I've got energies around me of anxiety, and I'm like, oh my gosh, is this my anxiety? And I had to really learn how to decipher, this is not my stuff. This is my client who I'm about to see, their loved ones really keen to get the session going and give me all the information.
Yeah.
So it's a journey that we're always learning.
It is. It is. I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's a really important thing, just to say, actually, this is when I do it. So it's great that I can do it, but I will get tired. I will be woken up. I won't be able to sleep, and I will not feel great. And I need, because we also need that same white light and that clearing. That also ensures that if you're feeling anxious or nervous, and you think that loved ones might be coming around, you can do that as well, because that brings you back to yourself. And that's another great example of how that light really helps to clear our fields. and
or
make
just
sure
say,
we're
you know,
not
not now.
checking
Just
out.
say not now. Or I just say, if you want me to help your loved one, get them to book an appointment, or like, you know.
Book an appointment. I'm like really clear. So it's like, no, out.
You have to, you know, it's not that you're being a bad person,
No.
but it can really, really start to impact your life and your, well, you know, mental state if you have too many people's spirits and energies hanging around.
And they
so how then can people get in contact with you, Melissa, if they want some help?
So my website is melissamatthews.com.au. And that's for bookings, for readings, and also for spiritual development, you know. And sometimes those readings and that spiritual development, which could be, you know, how you naturally meditate, and or, you know, being in, you know, how you can communicate with your angels, your inner guidance, that will, you know, generally comes in within one session anyway, because it's very effective, because I just, you know, bring through what they ask me to. And yeah, and so even like, you know, for Facebook and things like that as well, it's just through my website. So that's where they'll find all the links. And I think that that's the same for you too, Alison, isn't it?
Yes, you can obviously find all my details over at my website, letlovebloom.com.au, all my links to Instagram and Facebook. I also have on my website a beautiful free guided meditation you can download, and another couple of bits and pieces, or sign up for my weekly newsletter and Bloom news and information, and Tune In Tuesday and stuff. But I also work, you can see me in person in my clinic up on the Central Coast in Kincumber. All the details from my website. Or I also do phone and Skype sessions as well for, you know, intuitive readings, healings, emotional freedom technique, kinesiology, to really heal that mind, body and spirit. So yeah,
same
it's all
here.
fun.
And it's really important for everybody to know that it doesn't matter, because I've got clients everywhere the same as you. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be with us for, you know, you don't have to be with us in the room, you know, and we can work remotely very, very well and very efficient.
Sometimes works better. I don't know about you. Sometimes it works better.
Yeah, I'm really efficient, and yeah, I like it where there's not that many questions as such. Like, let's do this first bit and then we're going to ask questions. So we always, you know, lay out like this is how it works. But yeah, it can be much better, I think, at times. So, all right. So thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.